Welcome, everyone, to the Around the Ballpark podcast. We are live right now. It is August 18th, just after 8 p.m. So glad that you're with us. And we have so many guests on with us for our very first live. Very excited to have, starting with our sponsor, Christopher Bennett, Nashville Tax Solutions. So great to have you on with us. Thank you so much for believing in this channel and just from the very beginning. And just a good friend of mine, and to see the growth that this channel has made just in the last 7 days is awesome. That's a tribute to all you listening and watching along. Thank you guys so very much. But Chris, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for letting us do this thing that we'd love to do. We also have with us, he's been on before as well, Doug Ruppel from the former bullpen catcher for the Cleveland baseball team and the Colorado Rockies. With us as well, and of course Sean Schofield, former professional baseball umpire for 17 years, with us as well. So super excited to have you all on with us, and of course my co-host Darren Redmond. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this live here tonight, and thanks everyone for watching as well. Appreciate it.
I got to tell you, first of all, you picked an all-star team for our first live podcast. Sincerely, because Doug, you had the greatest story in baseball history, in my opinion.
Yes, I've told that story so many times.
And if you haven't heard the story, Doug, let's start this off, okay? About your hit, Cleveland, the whole thing. Tell the kids the greatest baseball story ever, you guys, and you tell me if I'm wrong. And if you tell me I'm wrong, I am. Go ahead.
Bullpen catching was one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. And it kind of happened by accident. I mean, I think I told you a long time ago, my neighbor when I was growing up was Thurman Munson. And so Thurman taught me to catch, and I became good friends with Thurman and his family. And you know, I still keep in touch with his son Mike and Diana whenever I go back to Canton, Ohio. That's where I grew up. But I went to an Indians fantasy camp, and I won the MVP and the camp. We won the championship for the camp. And before I was getting ready to leave, I got asked if I would want to go maybe help the Montreal Expos for spring training. They brought a bunch of pitchers in that they just didn't have enough bullpen catchers. And if I wanted to go across the state from Winter Haven over to West Palm, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And they said they'll take you for a day, a week, or however long you can stay. So I went over and worked the whole spring training with them. And then the following year, I went back to go. I was going to go do the camp again with the Indians, and they said, no, we'll just hire you. And they basically had me help with fantasy camps. And then I would go back to Cleveland and spring training. And usually for the first month or and a half of the season, I would go back to Cleveland and help them out in any way I could, whether it was in the bullpen, clubhouse, you know, whatever they needed. I did it, whatever they wanted, and it was a treat. It was a ball to do it, and I did it with them for 12, 13 years. Did spring trainings, and then, like I said, I'd do the first month of the season, and then I'd go back to Ocean City and do my summer, and then come back in the fall and usually help them with the playoffs and stuff. Because in the 90s, of course, the Indians had a great team, and then in mid 2000s, they were moving from Winter Haven, Florida, over to Goodyear, Arizona, and they no longer needed my services really, because they had local kids. They didn't need to pay us to bring us down, so I ended up thinking I was done, and then I got a call from the Colorado Rockies, and I ended up working for them for 7 years. So it was just a great run. I mean, I couldn't even imagine if somebody would have told me that this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed them. It was so much fun. I got to catch so many now Hall of Famers, and it was a treat. Yeah.
You were going to say, Darren? Looked like kids.
I was going to say, didn't something happen in Cleveland that was kind of funny?
Well, it was I believe you were actually with the Mets, right, when it happened, the infamous hit.
That's what I want to hear.
Gosh,
this is the greatest story ever. I'm sorry, gentlemen. It's worth it because that story is great. This is the funniest thing. This was a real Charlie Brown moment where they move, Lucy moves the football. but
Yes.
this is baseball.
Oh,
Listen to this, the greatest story ever.
So, yeah, in 1995, I got signed by the Mets as a replacement player. And you know, you have that one exhibition game before the home opener. Well, we happened to be in Cleveland playing the Indians. So my family being from right down the road in Canton got to all come up to the ball game. They're all sitting in the stands, and we had a pretty good crowd for the game. And, of course, right before we went on the field, they told us there was a good chance the strike was going to get settled today, because if we went to midnight, every one of us replacement players got $100,000. So I pretty much knew they didn't want to pay us that. So we kind of took it that it was going to be our last game. Well, I get up to bat, and I'd already had a couple hits in the game, and I believe it was the 6th or 7th inning, and I hit a double off the left field wall, and I just missed a home run by about 1.5 feet. And I'm standing on second base, and the crowd's going nuts. And I'm thinking, and I'm getting ready to take my helmet off and tip it to the crowd, because I'm thinking, well, they're all just happy, even though I'm wearing a Mets uniform. They're all happy because I'm a Canton boy, local from Ohio, and that's why this crowd's going crazy. And right then, the second baseman for the Indians, and this is what he said, "Hey, asshole, they're not clapping for you. Turn around and look at the big screen." And I turned around and looked at the center field scoreboard, and it said, "The Major League strike has just ended." Yes.
Don't let him steal your glory. They were cheering
I
for you.
mean, man, my shoulders dropped, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Just like that, I get a hit off the wall. And the minute I literally land on second base, it comes up on the scoreboard, the strike. I mean, it was like perfect timing. So the crowd went nuts. And I thought, well, this is really nice. The Cleveland crowd giving a Mets player a big hand. They must know I'm from Canton, right down the road. And the guy, man, he wasn't going to let me have it. He said, hey, dumbass, you know, they're not clapping for you.
And that was a moment. Not only did they take away the actual moment, but then you're also realizing like the strike's lifted and what that means for me as a player.
Right.
And then you got to wonder about the guy in the box, like the trigger finger. Like he had a few minutes. He could have waited to hit that button. He didn't have to at that moment. Come on.
Well, and I got a feeling if it had been the hometown Indians at bat, he would have waited till the inning was over and then put it up there. But because I was a visiting New York Met, he thought, well, take his thunder away. Let's just end that right now. And yeah, it was kind of funny because my parents were in the crowd. And after the game, of course, it was a very good laugh on the way back to Canton, as my parents were like, yeah, that was pretty funny today. You thought that was for you, huh? And I said, yeah. It was a Charlie Brown moment, man. Lucy took the ball right out from under me. And we'll get back to you as well too, but not to also be overshadowed by the fact that I believe the first professional baseball pitcher that you were asked to catch for, or one of the first, was Mr. Randy Johnson. Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Go catch that guy.
Yeah, that was either in 89 or it was either in spring training in 89 or 90, whatever year he was with the Expos. That was the year, and I think it was 89. And yeah, that wasn't fun because, I mean, he was a rookie. And man, I'm going to tell you something. He was throwing 102, 103 miles an hour, and you didn't know where it went. You know, now later in his career, I happened to work with a guy named Robbie Hammock, who caught him with the San Francisco Giants. And maybe even with the Diamondbacks too. I can't remember, but Robbie had said he became pinpoint. You know, as his career went on, he really became pinpoint, which was obvious. I mean, when you can take a bird out of the sky during a spring training game, like he did. No, but seriously, his first year, it was like when I caught Bartolo Colon. Colon was the same way his first couple years. He was a little nutty, and then he settled down and found the strike zone. But nobody threw the ball harder than Bartolo Colon, and that I've ever caught. I mean, it was like a waterlogged ball, heaviest fastball I ever caught in my life. And even when I was with the Rockies and he was with the White Sox, I was talking to their bullpen catcher one day after a spring training game, or after we warmed up before the game, and I said, "How's your hand?" And he goes, "Oh, you know about this?" And I said, "Yeah, I caught him when he was a rookie." And he goes, "You're kidding." He goes, "I can't even imagine when he threw like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, It was like catching a wet baseball every time.
Sean, I think of our conversation a lot because getting a perspective from an umpire, it means a lot. And not that whole, it's a stupid call, this or that. But what I see this year that I really wanted to talk to you about, and I was so joyful when Mike told me you were going to come on, the interference. It seems nebulous, third base, second base, the fielder is interfering with the base but
the infield fly rule, I think
well, that too, but also just impeding the runner supposedly. And has the rule changed that so much in the last couple of years?
It just seems like it's a little more prominent this year for whatever reason. But the only really rule, as far as interference is concerned, that's changed is the play at the plate, like we talked about last time. That's the only major rule, the Buster Posey rule. Everything else has been pretty much standard, rule books.
But the second base, guy sliding into second, sort of, it seems to be not kind of, was it? Did he try to take out the fielder? Did he not try to take out the fielder? You had that. A lot of that stuff. It's kind of weird right now. It's in flux.
One of the other rule changes, I believe, this year was the obstruction rule. In the past, in the past, the fielder was able to block. So a pickoff play at first base, the first baseman can drop his knee and impede the runner from getting back to the base. In the past, that was legal. Now it'll be obstruction, and he'll get awarded second base. I think it's a college rule too. I believe that they're kind of it's more for player safety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that they made the base a little bit bigger now, when you drop your knee and you can still reach your way around it. I guess that's so they give them the opportunity to. So
true.
Yeah. True. I have a question for you, Sean, but I want to ask this to you, Christopher. So we actually have our first video or question from a listener that came through. So I wanted to ask you this because those that may not know, Christopher had some experience as a bat boy in his time. And so the question came through is if there was an athlete or a star that you were starstruck when you got the opportunity to interact with that person or see them at a much more close-up level.
So the coolest experience was definitely Cal Ripken Jr. It was right around the time that he broke the record, and I was starstruck. But then he also pulled up to the stadium, with his truck, and he had a cooler of beer in the back of his truck, and popped a beer after a game. And I was a kid, and I was like, I thought, this guy's an athlete. I thought he ate chicken and lettuce all day long, and it was weird. That was one of the moments I was very starstruck by him. But Cal was always cool about, he would sign the stadium, and he would go from the dugout all the way to the outfield and just sign autographs for everybody, and just being on the other side and working with him, great guy. But that was one of the first experience, definitely starstruck, but also, made these guys normal human beings to me, that I had put on a pedestal growing up, like, these guys are professional athletes. They can't do anything, wrong. They don't drink beer in the middle of games or anything like that. I was sadly mistaken.
Chris, if you can share for a wider audience now and for other guests, you alluded to the fact that there was some people that said, "Don't touch my bat." Stay away from. Talk about that.
Yeah. McGuire in the year before he broke the record, you didn't touch his bat. Like I didn't. He had his own guy. He, even during the game, during batting practice, nothing. Didn't even really get to interact with him very much because you just didn't touch his bat. So it was, there's a couple guys like that, but most of the guys were cool until I ran out. Like if they struck out and I ran out to grab their bat. They didn't like that. It took me about once to figure out that you don't go grab their bat when they strike out. So.
Superstitious.
Yes.
Yeah. Get away from me, kid. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
I have another question for you, Christopher, about that.
Sure.
So I've heard stories, and no names or anything like that, but like, do individual players tip the bat boy at the end of the season? Like, how does all that work?
So the big league guys will, and if you run an errand for them or something like that, the big league guys will. That I worked A-ball, most of the time down in Vero Beach, and those guys are almost the same age as Beltre was down there when he was 17. I was 17. They didn't really have that much money. I played cards with the guys every once in a while, and then they would throw a little bit of money around. But the A-ball guys are not raking it in. They might have got a signing bonus, maybe, but no, they weren't coming off with too much money. And so sometimes the umps would tip us a little bit because we'd feed them. We'd bring them the hot dogs or.
Sean, is that true?
Yes. A lot of hot dogs early on in my career. It got better as you got, as you progressed, but a lot of cold hot dogs, cold French fries, everything that was left over in the concession stand, and a couple of beers from time to time. Yeah, but we would tip, absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes.
Those baseball players, if they got bonuses, they were probably driving it because they were
that's true,
and they didn't have any money after that.
No,
it's either your bonus either goes to, I think, like a car, a ring, or there was something else, and I can't think of what the third one was. Maybe a house, but those are the three. The bonus.
The amount of money they spend on jewelry is insane. It's insane.
Well, it's funny. I worked at Foot Locker when I was younger, also, and Mondesi came in, and he had a deal with Adidas, right? So he would get, an allowance or whatever, a few $1 million a year from Adidas to buy Adidas apparel. And he was buying like the cheapest shoes in the place he was buying. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is free to you. He's like, oh yeah, I need 3 of the $5 clearance shoes. I'm like, really, Raul? I know who you are. I know you make money. What are you doing? No, Adidas pays me well, but I like the cheap ones. So I'm like, all right, buddy.
I love that. I wanna read this. We have a listener, Flyers Forever, someone who worked a hot dog stand for the Expos back in the day. He can confirm that story. So, and then we also have another question that came in. Emily, thanks for watching. And Emily was asking how we came up with her and her husband had been watching faithfully this week, kind of catching up on all the episodes, and asking how we came up with the name Around the Ballpark. So I'll start, and then Darren, if anything you want to time into that. So really the premise with Around the Ballpark was, we could sit here, we could talk about our team all day long. We're big Met fans, we kind of mentioned that a lot. But we love the game of baseball first and foremost. And so we thought, let's go around to each of the ball clubs and just kind of dissect a little bit, because it's not just watching your team play. It's the experience, not just when you get to the stadium, but it's the ride to the stadium, the plans to make tickets to get to the game. It's an all around experience. It's more than just what's happening here in the now, who's winning the game, who's in the roster today. There's so much that goes along with that. We just want to unpack it and get to learn a little bit about all the other franchises as well too. And bonus, Around the Ballpark, not all of our episodes are specific to a Major League Baseball team, such as this episode here and others. We've had guests on just other topics as well. And the premise of Around the Ballpark was, yes, we're going to talk about different ballparks, different stadiums. We're going to talk about current rosters and Mount Rushmores and stuff like that. But we're going to talk about some other stuff too along the way. And, just as a car ride, you think, okay, I'm leaving the house, I'm going to the stadium. You're going to talk about a lot of other things along the way. So that's what this really is about. Darren, anything you want to add with that?
No, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, a great example is that, when we started this, it really is a passion project. And it's only as successful as the people, for example, the guests that we have here. And because when you talk baseball is the game and so much other stuff. It could be pop culture. It could be a movie. It could be cartoons. It could be, whatever. I mean, for example, our most popular episode was about wrestling. I mean, so you just never know, which is great, and that's what it's about. Because if you went to my concept when I spoke to my brother and we sat down, and when I say my hours is if we were at a restaurant, we were at a bar, we're at a diner, and we start talking about whatever, the conversation just kind of meanders and goes different places, doesn't it? And then it comes back. So it might have started talking about taxes or umpiring, and then you talk about other stuff, and then it comes back. That's very interesting. And you learn so much about things. So that's where the name came from.
Yes. Great question. So I
Mhm. Yep. Yes. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, it's so true. Sean, I had a couple questions. Again, I say this a lot, and I said it during our podcast with you. I'm a process person. So if you don't mind going behind the curtain a little bit, what is the process of promotion as an umpire? And it's very interesting to me because you have two umpires for say a ball. Like when does it become three or four? And how do you get ranked and scored because on your individual achievements, but yet you're part of an umpiring team? If you could walk us through that.
Well, you're ranked individually based on your field work and your plate work. You actually work two-man system all through what there is no short league anymore. I guess I'm dating myself, but you work your way through low A and then high A, and then once you get to double A, it's three-man crew. Triple A is a four-man. Well, it's generally speaking, it's a full-time three-man crew, and occasionally you'll have a fourth guy from the big leagues who's going up and down. And if there's a guy rehabbing, they do some rehabbing work in AAA. So if there's 22 umpires in a league, they're all evaluated based on their individual skills, their individual performances. Now, obviously, it's a lot different than when I was coming up because, I mean, the nuances on how you get judged on balls and strikes, like 100%. Pat Holberg had 100% the perfect game, and I guess it was the postseason a couple of years ago. Things like that are just it's crazy to me to think that they've got the ability to find out whether or not it's a strike, whether whether you got the call right, whether you didn't get the call right, according to, of course, the pitch tracker. But you're individual. So basically, it's individually. You don't really get evaluated with the crew. You do get evaluated with how you work with your crew. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. And one of the major things that they look for when you are being evaluated is how you handle situations. That's one of the biggest things that they're going to look at for you. Obviously, balls and strikes are huge. Out saves, fair fouls, that's all huge. But how you handle yourself in different situations is a big factor when you get promoted.
I gotta ask, like, there's got to be a time if we're talking about a game 11-1, top of the eighth inning, bottom of the eighth inning, does something go through your mind? It's okay. You know what? I'm gonna stretch. I'm gonna tighten this up just a little bit. We're going on 3 hours, 15 minutes. I feel like that's probably part of the evaluation process. How does that umpire handle those situations? Because just in a competitive or just in a recreational church leagues, so a lot of those umpires, they dial it in at about 9:20 on a 8:30 game night.
Sure. So you're trying to. I mean, it's a very slippery slope. I mean, one of the things you never want to kind of open up your strikes and because once you do that, it's going to enter your head, and then the baseball gods are going to come down and they're going to teach you a lesson. I guess one of the things that I guess I was able to do, I guess again, dating myself back in the day, is when a pitcher's struggling, right? And he's walking 2 or 3 guys, and you kind of want to kind of grab a strike for him, right? So maybe that pitch that's borderline on the knees or borderline on the corner, you're going to grab that strike and give him an opportunity to get back in his rhythm, in his zone, because that's the extent of it. You don't want to go any further than that. Yes, you're aware. I mean, a lot of the ballparks have, digital clocks in center field and left field. I mean, now they all do, of course, because of the pitch clock, but it creeps into your mind. But you just got to kind of shake yourself and lock in a little bit better. And, just a couple more innings, couple more at bats, we'll be back in the dressing room.
So this question is actually for. I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Sean, and didn't they have like an umpire school in Daytona there for a while?
That's actually the one I attended, was Harry Wendelstedt's umpire school. It is still the largest umpire school. I know the most popular one right now is actually in Vero Beach. It's where umpire development is. So they do a lot there. It's the same 5-week course that you go to, and then you go to what's, I guess, finishing school, so to speak, where they evaluate you in like spring games, and colleges and high schools come down and they work those games. They evaluate you based on your performance there, and then they assign you to a different league. That's the prominent one now. Mr. Wendelstedt's was by far the premier one, and then of course Jim Evans had one out in Kissimmee, and that kind of filtered out. But it's right now it's Harry Wendelstedt's and the Vero Beach one.
I was going to ask
5 long weeks. Oof. In Daytona Beach.
I was going to ask you, Doug and Sean, a question, but before that, this popped into my head as well. One thing, people don't realize how often umpires get it right. I mean, they really do. And the thing that people talk about balls and strikes, and that's so important. Don't get me wrong, but when you have those bang bang plays, the positioning, and there's a lot going. I mean, that ball is traveling. People are moving. How do they teach that? I mean, there has to be instinct, and then of course what they teach. I mean, that can't come overnight.
No, it doesn't. It's a lot of times it's reactionary. It is muscle memory, but you also want to stay still. That's your number one. Don't move. Try not to move. That's what they teach in the minor leagues. I know now in the big leagues, now those guys can do whatever they like because they are the best of the best. They're going to rotate around to the based on where the baseball takes you. There's certain, and you just kind of read the baseball. You read the play. So, for example, play at home, right? You're going to start at the point of the plate, and then based on where the throw takes you, 98% of your players are going to take on the third base line extended. So you're going to take that because it's going to be a swipe tag behind you, right? Doug, where do they slide to? They slide to the point of the plate, right? When you're coming in. So they want to get to the point of the plate. So you want to keep yourself between the fielder and the runner. And the way to do that is just kind of rotate around. Yeah. So it's instinct, it's reading, it's just like anything else. It's, you do it, enough times, you're going to get real good at it.
So I have a 2-part question for both Doug and Sean, real quick on this. First is, do you have a lot of times where the catcher tries to influence the umpire or talk to the umpire and that kind of thing? And the second part of that question is, when you catch somebody obviously trying to frame and snatch, does the umpire say something to the catcher like, stop doing that? I know what you're doing. Well, Doug, you go first.
I'll tell you what, I always had great rapport with umpires because, and great respect for them. And they do get so many right and so few wrong. And it's just a shame sometimes the wrong call gets overshadowed and it overshadows their performance because these umpires are so good at what they do. But it's funny because I've never really had that problem. I did a different type of framing than what I see now. I got taught by Thurman Munson and Jeff Torborg how to frame. And it was basically not framing. It was the way I would receive the pitch. If the pitch was coming in, I would catch it and just bring my hand down. Just by closing my hand like this, I could take 3 inches off of that strike zone. And the same thing on an inside pitch. Just bring my glove in. I don't have to jerk it or move it. You just catch it and turn your hand in as you're catching as you're receiving the ball. And I could take a 2 or 3 inches, a little bit off of that not deliberately doing it, but just the way I was always taught. And it kept me from jerking the ball. I hate what I see now. Some of these guys are jerking the ball. And to me, it's almost insulting to the umpire. Because it's like, really? You can see he's right over your shoulder. And this crap, now that every catcher sits down on one knee, is, to me, insane. That just shows my age. But I think it's really horrible. They're trading defense for pitch framing. The umpires are good at what they do. You don't have to lay down on the ground to give them the strike zone. These guys see the zone. You don't have to get down on that knee like that. But I never had an issue with that. Now, I have seen catchers that have been told by umpires, hey, you can knock that off now. Or if they're really bad at framing. But most umpires I caught with were really awesome. I never had an issue, with it, most of them. And I've been fascinated listening to him talk because I love listening to umpires. They have the same perspective I do from back behind the plate, but of course theirs is a little different. And I love hearing their view on stuff because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, Doug, I have a feeling that you and I would have a nice game together through 9 innings. I think we would enjoy the day. The conversation would be great. Never adversarial, and I feel the same way. It's you're in there working together. The one thing that I would say, Darren, to your question was if there's a guy who's asking where a pitch is, right? So as Doug alluded to, kind of just jerking it back in the strike zone, he's going to ask me where that pitch is, right? Sean, where do you have that pitch? I got it in. I got it away, right. Or I have the same place you have because you're bringing it back in or bringing it back out, right? Same place you have. All right. So he's like, and then what he does, he'll bring it back in that because they're so good right now. He'll bring it up. He'll bring it back in that half inch. I'll give it a strike and he'll just kind of shake his head and, throw the baseball back. So.
Yep. Yeah. So I have a few more questions came in, but before I do that, I just want to comment for both Jake and for Christopher before we get to the two questions. Jake, I just want to just kind of circumvent to what you were saying earlier because so often, sometimes Darren and I would joke about talking to the clouds, when we got to get something off our chest and vent about something, right? But you brought up a great point, Jake, was that this show is really about telling stories. Like so often we're complaining about this, we're complaining about that. You watch anything, sports related for most time, it's criticizing why this one's wrong or what's right about this and wrong about that. But this is an avenue for just people to come on and just share the wins because it's not all losses, right? Like there's a lot of good things that have happened. And so thank you for saying that. And then Chris, I want to make sure before we continue, I want to give you just a minute here to just, I know we talk about natural tax solutions a lot on the show, obviously, but I want to give you a floor for that because obviously, the name, they probably know what it's about, but could you just share your heart, how that came to be? Because that's important to us that you get to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Please.
Definitely. I've personally been in the tax resolution business for over 20 years, worked with a lot of different companies and, took the initiative to become an enrolled agent. So I'm now federally licensed and I can represent taxpayers in front of the IRS and all 50 state governments. And, for the last probably 12 years, my favorite vacation spot is actually Nashville. I've been going there for CMA Fest, the Country Music Festival, for probably about 12 years. And I actually have property in Nashville now and have just become a huge fan of the city, the culture, and everything like that. And, I've dabbled with some other company names and things like that. But Nashville Tax Solutions, I love Nashville. I really do. And that's why I wanted to name my company after it. It gets confusing. We're located in Palm Bay, Florida, but the name of the company is Nashville Tax Solutions. I even have a 615 phone number for the company. So, just to throw people off, I do work out of my house in Nashville, sometimes, but no, it's just it's something that I really love. If you guys ever come to the office, you'll see a eclectic mix. I have a 11-foot alligator stuffed, and then I got a Bo Jackson jersey. I've got pictures of me and Jelly Roll and you know, some football helmets.
I love it.
I got a 10 autographed baseball display up there. So
alligator and jelly roll. I like
I
it.
know. Yeah,
Yes.
a turkey and a deer, and about 4 jelly roll guitars. There's guitars all, and this is all in a 1,000 square foot office I got. So,
and you gotta add your Hulk Hogan photo there as well. Last week, right? It was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got
Yeah. It was
awesome.
at the fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and those that don't know, and go back and rewatch the episode with Christopher. Like, not just Natural Tax Solutions, but a great baseball mind. Has attended many World Series games. Just a fan of the game of baseball. So glad. Passionate fan. So the questions, 2 questions that came in for Sean here. It was from Jen Kripp. Thanks for watching, Jen. She was curious how being a retired umpire has now affected you watching the game now. And then the second part from Flyers Forever, what was your welcome to the big leagues moment?
Well, I was never in the big leagues. Unfortunately, I didn't get that far. But to answer Jen's question first, she would know. She sits on the couch next to me most evenings and watches the Yankees with me. And she's a Red Sox fan. So it's kind of an interesting. It is. We have a little banner outside that says, house divided. But and truly, she has made me a better fan and actually enjoying watching the games again, because when you're doing something every day, no matter what it is, it's going to become routine, right? And even if it is, an excellent job like being on a baseball field every day, it takes its toll, and you don't enjoy the game as much. But since I've been out of the game, and I'm marrying a baseball fan, it's more of a fan again. Like before I was in the game, it was Yankee Stadium every Sunday. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so Yankee Stadium every Sunday, watching the games, doing the national anthem with my grandfather when I was 5 years old. Standing there watching, all of that. So being removed from it for as long as I have it just makes it a lot easier. And so enjoying the game with her is a lot. I still analyze it. She will tell you. I'm sure Mike. One of these days we'll get together and you'll meet her. And if you guys are local as well, I still analyze, of course. Pitches, for one thing, curveball, what he's going to throw next, and it's a pleasure to be a fan again. I've absolutely enjoyed the games. I played forever, so that's that. Thanks, Jen, for the question. And it was Flyers. What was the
Flyers Forever? Yeah, so
Flyers Forever
for both Sean and Doug. Just your favorite.
So my very first spring training in Vero Beach, I walked out of the locker room, and the first person I saw was Tommy Lasorda. He didn't even really pay attention to us. He kind of just nodded. The next person I saw was Sandy Koufax.
Wow.
Now, my partner didn't know who he was. He was a little younger than I was. I'm going, and my eyes just kind of, huge. Again, that was, pre the game. So I'll make it really quick. Sandy Koufax walked right past me, and I just said, Mr. Koufax, it's a pleasure to meet you, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just stumbling over my words. My tongue got huge. I was like, I just needed a glass of water, just trying to I was starstruck, literally starstruck. And, I happened to run into him again back at St. Lucie when I was doing some Mets work. And I apologized to him. I said, Mr. Koufax, I apologize. I said I was a complete mess when I first met you. I was a rookie umpire. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what I was doing. And the first person I encountered was you. And he looks at me and he says, I'm just a washed up old pitcher. Guy looks like he can still pitch, right? Like he's got that build about him. He's always around Vero. So again, I'm sorry
I've seen him in the
Publix down there. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And when I worked at the Vero Beach Town Spa, he would come in. Like it was but he was awesome. Craves his privacy. Yes, he craves his privacy.
So I have a very quick. I know we have to go soon, but I keep
getting this flashing thing up there.
I have a very quick question for the three of you. I mean, you all have watched the game from a place where none of us have, my brother and I, or Jake. Can you tell when a pitcher is tipping his pitches?
Oh, yeah.
I can.
So we got Doug says yes, Christopher says no. Umpire, break the tie.
When it doesn't get to the catcher, he's definitely tipping them, right? Because he's going to tear the cover up.
Wow.
So, yeah, I would probably say yes. I can't see it like Doug would be able to, but yeah, if it's not getting to the catcher, he's tipping him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are certain pitchers. I mean, it would depend how they. A lot of times, we used to be able to tell sometimes by just the muscles in their arms, the way they were gripping the ball. We could tell if it was a fastball or a curve just by the way they were gripping the ball, and you could see that in their forearms. And I'd be sitting there going, "All right, here comes the heater."
Yep.
And it was.
Or they would kind of move it around to try and find their. Yep. Yeah. Very good point, man.
Yeah, there was, but it's not as prevalent now. I mean, by God, I mean, when a pitching coach goes to the mound now, they cover their, everybody covers their mouth. You can't. I mean, it's become so private when you're on that mound and on that dirt now that nobody's allowed to hear what anybody's saying or seeing what their lips are moving. And yeah, and now and I think with all the analytics, some of these guys have figured out, just that arm thing about the muscles in the arm. And I've noticed a lot of guys are doing this, kind of putting their gloves up and almost hiding their arm as they're gripping the ball, so you can't see it. But there's different things you can see. Sometimes some guys will toe the rubber on a certain part of the slab if they're throwing a certain pitch, or they'll, there's little different things. But believe me, now I got a feeling with analytics that there's ways to find out that stuff in a heartbeat now that we didn't have back then.
I cover my mouth if I don't want people to hear what I'm talking about in a restaurant, just because it's just second nature to do it. I don't want to. Usually when I'm speaking poorly about somebody, I'd be like, all right, and then
Oh yeah, it's funny because I'd go out to the mound and I'd say something to my pitcher, and first thing you do now is you take your glove or your hand and you cover your mouth. And I remember thinking, we didn't have to do that back in the day.
That just brought up another question, Christopher.
Yes.
You don't have to give names if you don't want to, but did anybody shock you with salty language?
Yes. Yeah. Piazza used to yell at me all the time. I didn't move fast enough for me. Get out of here, you little bastard. I'm like, I'm going as fast as I can. I'm a fat little 16-year-old. What do you want from me, man?
Oh, we're gonna have you on every week. That's how
I used to hear Albert Bell tear up umpires. I used to almost like, when I go up to an umpire before a game, I go, listen, I'm sorry ahead of time. What's going to happen today if you don't call a pitch that Albert likes? Because man, he could turn around with just a look and it would scare the hell out of an umpire. But if he said some things too, he meant it. He was a scary dude. He used to take a baseball bat and knock the thermometers off of the clubhouse in Cleveland. He would, because he liked the clubhouse so cold, and if anybody would adjust it, he'd come in and take the bat and knock the. I remember, I think it was 1995. I think we went through like 9 thermostats that year in the clubhouse. They finally put a big, like a metal grate around it so that he couldn't get to it.
Chris, I actually did. So in the minor leagues, we've got to rub up the baseballs before all of the games. And I remember I forget why I did it. I was tired. I just gotten in late or whatever it was. I remember I tipped the ball boy to rub up the baseballs for me one game, and he probably pretty good job actually. I was very surprised. So he made some money from us, but you guys always did such a great job.
What year were you down in Vero?
Oh gosh, 2002 was my first spring training. Okay. Maybe it was 2003. Seemed like a long time ago. Wouldn't that be funny if we ran into each other?
That would have been 95, 96 was when I was down there.
You knew where we were coming from, right? Between 3 and 4 out of that locker room in the back.
Yeah,
just walked right out and ran right into Sandy friggin' Koufax. Good God.
Now,
what a fool I made of myself.
It was.
It is. Yeah, they did a lot of work to it.
We only have even before though. It was the best access to players that you had. I mean, the rope was literally the divider between you and the players.
And that's what makes spring training such a great experience for a baseball fan. You can't do that in football. You can't do that in basketball. You were literally this thin rope away from favorite baseball players, and most of them are so welcoming. It's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
But then I went over to
Unfortunately-
Tampa and the Yankees played. It's like Fort Knox over there.
It is,
They've got fences everywhere. But they opened this little row now in the fence where you can like stick your hands in the for autographs and stuff, which I thought that's better than when they first opened Tampa. That was completely foreign to me that they would even put a fence up anywhere.
Yep, I know.
And unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes left, so I want to make sure because of the time. But we're talking about autographs. You got to share a quick 30-second. Only time I ever got a baseball signed, I was at a game with my father at Space Coast Stadium in Vieira, Florida, and I finally get a ball. Never got one in my life, and all of a sudden, somebody right behind me, it's like, "Hey, if you want, I'll sign that ball for you." I was like, "No, I'm good. Like that's okay. I don't know who you are." And he's like, "No, I don't mind at all." And he takes the ball out of my hand, signs the ball. Still to this day, don't know who in the heck that guy was. I don't know. Something was a little off.
Hey.
So the very first ball I ever got was signed by some random Joe Schmo sitting behind me. So it's the only ball I've gotten to this day.
Bring it on next time. We'll analyze it.
Yes.
We'll see if we can figure it out.
Spring training, people would see me coming out of the bullpen. They'd ask me to sign balls all the time. And I'm like, I'm just a bullpen catcher. You don't want my name on that ball. Whatever that ball's worth, it just went down in value if I signed it.
Yeah,
same here.
I got to sign some as Santa Claus one year when I was Santa Claus for Christmas in July. So I signed a couple balls as Santa Claus one year. That was a good time.
Doug, Christopher, Sean, Jake, Darren, thank you all so very much for being our very first live. It's going to be hard to top this one. This is outstanding. Next week, we're going to go live again, completely outside the box. We are going to be meeting with Haunt Scene. They are actually a local haunt company that travels all throughout the United States and various different haunts and haunted attractions, and they visit with them. So we're going to have them on the show, and we're going to get to know them a little bit and some awesome attractions that are coming up this fall. We have some other great guests coming along the way. So thank you all for watching tonight. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you around the ballpark.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Great time.
Take your time, not in the fast lane. I understand that you've been broken too many times, but I'll be waiting to mend your wounds from all you've taken. But if we listen to each other, admit our mistakes, then I can show you who I am, because I know